So you're being asked to rotate the object 90 degrees clockwise around point O. So the first thing you want to do is actually draw in your X and Y axis. So I'm going to make my X and Y axis intersect at the point of rotation because I know rotation rules when I'm rotating an object around the origin. So I have my X axis on the screen, and now I'm going to draw my Y axis. Okay, you always want to make sure that your X and Y axis intersect at the point of rotation. The next thing you want to do is you want to label the points on your figure. So we have A, B, C, and D. And then you want to write the coordinates for A, B, C, and D. When I know that I'm actually writing coordinates, I go ahead and set up my point name and my parentheses and my commas just to make sure I'm using the right structure. I know that A is located on the y-axis, so my x-coordinate is 0, and I know that my y-coordinate is -2, so I will go ahead and write that in. Next, I'll go ahead and look at B. B is located on the x-axis, so the coordinates of B are, I'm going to start at 0 and count 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 0. My x-coordinate is 4 and my y-coordinate is 0. Now I will go ahead and fill in my ordered pairs for points C and D. All right, so now I have my ordered pairs written down, and I know that this object is in the second quadrant. And in the second quadrant, I know that all of my x-coordinates are positive and all of my y-coordinates are negative. So I can see that all of my x-coordinates are positive, unless it's a 0, of course. And I can see that all of my y-coordinates are negative unless I have a 0. All right, so here's where the real work comes in. So I have to write what my image point is going to be based on these pre-image points. So my pre-image points are A, B, C, and D. And my image points are going to be A prime, B prime, C prime, and D prime. So I'm going to go ahead and set up the structure for those points now. All right, so now I have the structure and I'm ready to go ahead and write out those points. I know the rule when I rotate around the origin 90 degrees clockwise. That rule states that I need to first switch my X and Y, the value of my X and Y coordinates. So that would be, if I switch them, my new X would be -2 and my new Y coordinate would be 0. But then there's a second step. You have to take the opposite number for the Y coordinate. So the opposite of 0 is 0, so that's fine. I'm okay with that. But let's look at point B. So I have to switch the coordinates. So I'm going to have 0, 4. I switched them. So now my new X coordinate is going to be 0. My new Y coordinate is going to be 4. But the second step of the rule says I have to write the opposite number for my Y coordinate. So I'm simply going to change the sign, and that's going to be -4. Let's watch this one more time. So I'm going to switch. So I have 3, -2. I'm going to make that -2, 3. And then the second part is write the opposite sign for my Y coordinate. And then one more time, I'm going to switch the values of each coordinate. And now I need to put a negative sign in front of the 2 because I want to take the opposite value for my new Y coordinate. And one thing that should be apparent to you is that we are actually going clockwise. So if we're going clockwise, we're going from this quadrant right here to this quadrant right here. What you should notice in this quadrant is that every X coordinate is going to be negative and every Y coordinate is going to be negative as well, unless it is a 0. So you can go over here and check this out. All of my X coordinates are negative, which is great because I know I'm going to be in this quadrant over here where all of the X coordinates are negative. And then all of my Y coordinates are negative or 0, which is great because I know in this quadrant over here, all of the y coordinates are 0 or negative. So I know that my image points seem like they could be correct. There are no major red flags here. So now I'm just going to plot A prime, B prime, C prime, and D prime in my coordinate plane. And let me go ahead and move this over some so you can see more of the graph. So I'm going to go ahead and plot those points now. All right, so now I've plotted my image points in the coordinate plane. I did those in blue, and I'm going to actually use segments to connect my points, and then we'll be all done. So let me go ahead and connect these points right here. There we go. All right, so now we have the rotated figure. It is rotated 90 degrees clockwise around this point O. And remember, I just made O my origin. I drew my x-axis, I drew my y-axis. I made them intersect at point O because I know the rotation rule for rotating around the origin. The origin is always where the x and y axis intersect, okay? So now I have the rotated object and I'm finished with this problem. So now we have a different point and a different object. However, we have the same directions, which is to rotate this object 90 degrees clockwise around point O. So the first thing you want to do is draw your X and Y axis. The next step is to label your points. All right, after you label your points, you want to go ahead and set up the structure for writing out your ordered pairs. Now that I have my structure written out, I'm going to go ahead and write my ordered pairs for points A, B, C, and D. First, let's talk about how I'm going to find the ordered pair for point A. I'm going to start here at the origin. Here's the origin. I'm going to go left, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I know that the x coordinate is going to be -4, and I'm going to go up 1, so the y coordinate is going to be 1. Now let's review how to find the ordered pair for B. So I'm going to start at the origin. I'm going to go left, 1, 2, so my x coordinate is -2. I'm going to go up 1, 2, 3, so my y coordinate is going to be 3. And now I'm just going to fill in the ordered pairs for points C and D. Once you have your ordered pairs for the points on your pre-image, you want to go ahead and set up the structure for your image points. Okay, now we are ready. So remember, the first part of the rule is to switch the x and y values for the coordinates. So I'm going to have 1, -4. The second part of the rule is to write the opposite value for y. So where I have -4, just gonna make it a +4. All you're doing is changing the sign. So let's look at B. You're gonna switch. So now you, instead of having -2, 3, you're gonna have 3, -2, and then change the sign. So it was negative, now it's gonna be positive. Let's do it one more time. Let's switch. And then the 1 becomes a +1, the -1 becomes +1. And let's do it one more time. Let's switch. So we have -2, 0. It's going to be 0, -2. And then the second part of the rule is to change the sign. Okay, great. So let's look at what we know here. So we are rotating clockwise 90 degrees. That means that we are going from this quadrant right here to this quadrant right here. So we know that this is quadrant 1, and we know that in quadrant 1, all of the x coordinates are positive and all of the y coordinates are positive. And we can see that all of our x coordinates are positive or 0, and all of our y coordinates are positive. So we know that our ordered pairs for our image are most likely correct. Now we're going to go ahead and plot these points. All right, so I have plotted my points. Another thing that I do to check my points to make sure they seem correct is I actually look at the angle they form with the pre-image point and the center of rotation. So if I look over here at point C, my center of rotation is O, and then C prime is my new image point. And I notice that they form a right angle. Then I'll go ahead and I'll check D, and I'll say, okay, D is right here. Here's D prime. They form a right angle, so I know that that point is correct. Then I'll check B, so I look at B. B is here, and B prime is there. They form a right angle, so I know I'm correct. I know it's 90 degrees. Then I'll look at A. A is right here. A prime is right here. They form a right angle, so I know I'm correct. The last thing I need to do is draw my segments, and then my figure will be completed. All right, so I have drawn my segments. I know that my figure is correct. You do have to actually write this on scratch paper at home, because this is the most important part of what you're doing here. If you do not write this part down, your figures won't be accurate. So you will have an inaccurate figure, so you won't get all your points. So make sure you are doing this part on scratch paper, and then simply coming back to Learn Zillion to plot your points and draw in your segment.